Good morning and welcome to the October City of Winston-Salem Public Safety Briefing. My name is Robert Owens. I'm Assistant Fire Chief with the Winston-Salem Fire Department. Trey Mayo, our Fire Chief, was unavailable today. So just kind of give you an idea of the rundown. The Fire Department will be presenting first, followed by Mr. Mel Sadler with Office of Emergency Management, and then Chief Barry Roundtree with the Winston-Salem Police Department. So I'd like to start off, certainly we need to keep the folks down east in our thoughts and prayers. Even though it's sunshiny and nice weather here in Winston-Salem, those folks down there are dealing with a record amount of flooding. So we need to keep those folks in our thoughts and prayers. Also, I want to kind of give you a little overview. We have deployed 5 personnel from the Winston-Salem Fire Department down east at the request of the state EOC. And I want to kind of brief you on what's going on down there. So we had 4 people, swiftwater rescue technicians that we deployed Sunday down to initially Edgecombe County. Since their deployment, they have effected a total of 16 rescues there in Edgecombe County. 13 rescues were people who were trapped by high water in their homes in one particular community. So they effected those rescues successfully. Also, they have rescued 3 people who were stranded in swift water in their automobiles. I know our emergency management director will talk about, turn around, don't drown. And unfortunately, those people found themselves in that situation, and our folks had to go in and help them get out of that particular situation. They have since moved, those 4 people have since moved from Edgecombe County to Sampson County. They've been redeployed there, and currently, as of today, they are doing reconnaissance missions in Clinton, which is the county seat there in Sampson County. So an additional person has been deployed as part of an incident management team to Edgecombe County, along with other people here in Forsyth County to help them manage that incident on the ground. So they're in the process of developing management plans to get them implemented there. So those 5 people, I would also ask that you keep in their thoughts and prayers. That's very dangerous work that they're doing among a number of emergency responders in North Carolina. But just to bring it down to the local level, we do have 5 people from our organization that are on the ground there doing good work. So keep them in your thoughts and prayers also. One thing I'd like to do is, bring up Jeremy Hughes at this time. And I'd also like to bring up Miss Rocha. Is she here? Come on. You can come over here and stand on the side. That's fine. Would you like to bring your son up? Or not? It's up to you.
He doesn't want to come up.
Okay, that's fine. I'd like to recognize Jeremy Hughes, one of our firefighters, for a life-saving award, a commendation. And let me read part of an email that Ms. Rocha sent to us. Monday afternoon, Jeremy was at a soccer practice with his son, and he saved my son Alex's life. Alex was choking on a bottle cap, and Jeremy had to do the Heimlich maneuver in order to remove this cap from my child's throat. Jeremy takes his career to heart, and you don't find that too often. On his job and off his job, he goes far and beyond to protect us and always on his guard. I can't express enough gratitude that I feel that our Heavenly Father above put him in the right place at the right time. Thank you for taking time to read this email, and thank you for having awesome people on your team protecting us. And that's an email from Ms. Rocha. So at this time, I would like to recognize Jeremy's actions by presenting him this award of commendation, this certificate. And I'll read it to you. It says, you are hereby recognized and applauded for your quick and decisive emergency actions that saved the life of a 10-year-old choking victim on September the 12th, 2016. So at this time, I'd like to present that to Jeremy.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. You have anything you'd like to say? Well, certainly, we appreciate you bringing that to our attention, and, we want to make sure, Alex is scared to come up here, that's fine. But, we are trained professionals 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So even though this occurred off duty, Jeremy's quick actions helped save the life of a 10-year-old boy. And thank you for that, Jeremy.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So at this time, I'd like to bring up Captain John Pennington. Or you can bring the whole crew up if you want. He's going to talk about the Firefighter Combat Challenge Team and the awards that they've won.
Bring the rest of the guys up too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Come on, John.
Chance is going to be as professional as this. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Captain Chaz Browning with the Winston-Salem Fire Department. We're going to tell you just a little bit about a competition we went to recently and give you a little information about the two different teams we have competing with the Winston-Salem Fire Department, or the young guys and the old guys as we affectionately call each other. On August 27th, both teams traveled to Louisville, Kentucky to compete in a regional competition. The old guys are the longest running, actively competing team in the country. They've been competing for 22 years and have 8 different world championship titles under their belt. These gentlemen are Captain Dwayne Cheek, who cannot be here today, Captain John Pennington, and Captain Bill Pietrotonio, who's a retired captain from Everett, Massachusetts. Alongside them are Brad Duncan from the Charlotte Fire Department that make up the over 50 division team. Now the over 40 division team are Captain Dwayne Cheek, Captain John Pennington, Bruce Fields from Greensboro Fire Department, Brad Duncan and David Bowman from the Charlotte Fire Department. So the bulk of the over 40 team are members of the team that are 59, almost 60, 58 years old, and they're competing with gentlemen that are 40 years old. They took first place in the over 40 division, and the over 50 team took second place in the over 40 division, running with gentlemen around the country that are 20 years their junior. So it's pretty impressive to be alongside them and watch them win in their division. In the open division, which is anyone 30 years and younger, are myself, and we have some new guys with us this year, a brand new team. It's really exciting. We have firefighter Pat Davison, firefighter Tyler Sanders, firefighter Ben Emmert, and firefighter Don Reeves. And this was actually their very first competition on the national scene. And for the first time out, they did exceptionally well. They ran a time of 1:29 and qualified for to compete in the World Finals at the end of this month. So that was an exceptional showing. You don't see that level very often. So it's very exciting to be a part of this team. It's an honor for myself to be alongside the older guys on our team for the past 10 years and to learn from them. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the city and the fire department administration, Chief Mayo and the assistant chiefs. From my perspective, the last 10 years, we have seen the most support from the city and our administration this year compared to any other years. So it was an exciting time to be at the competition. We look forward to being at the World Finals. We view ourselves as the city's team. We represent them. We view ourselves as the fire department's team, represented by them. And finally, I'd like to give a small thanks to the Firefighters Union, the Winston-Salem Professional Firefighters Association, for their support as well. Chief Owens?
Any questions for these guys?
What exactly do you guys do at the competition?
There's several different events that simulate different aspects of our job. The first event, which firefighter Sanders on our team runs, is the stair climb. We run up a 5-story tower in full turnout gear and our air packs, which we call SCBA, roughly 38 pounds of gear on our backs, and we're carrying a 42-pound high-rise pack of hose. So he's quite weighed down going up this 5-story tower. Next is the hoist, which we hoist a 42-pound roll of supply hose from the ground floor using a rope up to the top of that tower. That's done by firefighter Pat Davison. Next, you have to descend the tower, hitting every step as fast as you can, and then onto the forcible entry simulator, which is a 165-pound iron I-beam that sits on a metal sled. We have to pick up a 9-pound shot mallet rubber sledgehammer, and we have to drive that I-beam 5 feet across that sled to its completion. Next, we go through an obstacle course, which is running through a zigzag set of fire hydrants called the delineators, as fast as you possibly can. And then you pick up a charged hose line full of water and pressure, and the resistance of that is about 100 pounds for the first 50 feet. The last 25 feet, the slack pulls out, and the resistance goes up to about 235 pounds. And we let that job fall to Ben Emmert. And finally, our clutch player is the dummy drag. We pick up 175-pound Rescue Randy. We drag him 106 feet backwards to the finish line, and Don Reeves accomplishes that task. So it's quite strenuous. Any other questions? Chief?
So certainly we'd like to thank these folks for going all over the country representing the City of Winston-Salem Fire Department. And I think that in all the awards that they win in bringing some recognition back here for us. So at this time, I'd like to give them a round of applause. Thank you all.
Down.
So at this time, I'd like to bring up firefighter Christopher Kiesler. He's going to talk about the fire department's participation in a rescue competition.
Thank you, Chief. Chief Owen-Salem, Christopher Kiesler, firefighter assigned to Rescue Company 1. We'll talk briefly about our rescue competition team. Unlike the Combat Challenge team, we're not near as old. We're in our infancy. We're only 2 years old. Chief Mayo approached us 2 years ago and asked us to put a team together to go compete. It was held in Hickory, both last year and this year, and I believe it'll be there again next year. It's a rescue squad event, for lack of better terms. It was the agency is the Association for Rescue and EMS. So this year and last year, there was only 2 fire departments that competed, us and Fayetteville. If you'll go ahead and get the next slide. As I said, 2 years old. Unfortunately, the majority of our team is either in a class today or 2 of them are deployed to, you said they're in Sampson County, correct? But here's a picture of us. It's firefighter Travis Franklin on the left, and this is going left to right. Mark Podlaski is a firefighter, engineer Justin Grubbs, myself, Captain Marcus Drawn, and firefighter James Brinkley. That compiles our team. Go ahead and get to the next one. The competition itself is 2 days. There is a 6-man competition, which is the actual technical rescue challenge. It's held the first day. This year there were 6 6-man teams. We competed in it. 5 minutes before the scenario starts is when you find out what it is. It's a secret. It's a big secret. These guys take that stuff very seriously. You're held in the holding room, no electronics whatsoever. You walk out, you're presented a piece of paper. Here's your scenario. You have 5 minutes to devise a plan. That's to simulate the response time to an incident. This year's scenario was a streets department worker who had been working in a storm drain vault when his topside crew heard a loud thud, lost contact with him. 911 call was placed. He had 19 minutes to access the patient, assess his condition, and package him to remove him. The parking deck here is what we were simulating being the street, and this red square is a drop tank. We use it in rural water applications for water for supply. That was the simulated vault. Go ahead and get the next slide for me. This large chunk of concrete here in this left picture was laying on the dummy's leg. He was face down in the vault, and about 2.5 to 3 minutes into the scenario, judge comes up to you. The vault's starting to flood, so that puts a little more urgency in it. But the objective was to package and remove the victim. Go ahead and get the next one. We utilize a ladder slide technique, which is what the ladder is there. Package the victim in a Stokes basket, hoisted him up. No team physically completed the scenario. We found out after all 6 teams had gone that the gentleman who created this year's scenario purposely made it where you would not complete it, but we made it the farthest, coming within about 15 seconds of completing it. So we placed first in it. And I spoke about the ladder there. The rigging is the picture on the right. Go ahead and get the next one. The second day is the Helms Rescue Challenge. It's a 2-man event. There was 12 teams that competed in it. All 12 teams were split from the larger 6-person teams from the day prior. That event's also timed with a 20-minute time limit. Competed about noon. The objective was to rig a Stokes basket, which is a patient transport device for horizontal raise and lower, but they threw a few catches in it, requiring to pass knots and some other technical skills. The catch to all this is the rigging's fairly straightforward. I like to think that we're fairly proficient at our rigging, but everybody must rig to the state lesson plan for technical rescuer certification. So they say it so you can all be graded equally, which I get that, but sometimes we don't necessarily rig that way. We might do some things different. Give us the next one. Here's some photos from that. That's Captain Drone and Firefighter Brinkley competing their basket. You can see the rigging. They required us to raise it to the rafters. You had to hold it there. They'll come up to you, hands off the system, make sure everything holds as a safety, and then require you to lower it. And again, that's Captain Drone and Firefighter Brinkley. As I said earlier, we placed first for the second year in a row in the 6-man event, and we placed second and sixth. Captain Drone and Firefighter Brinkley placed second, and Engineer Grubbs and myself placed sixth. That should be, there's the picture. I believe that was off Twitter. I may be mistaken on that, but I think that's where I got it from. That was it. Does anybody have any questions? All right. Chief?
Thank you, Chris. This time I'd like to bring up our senior community educator, Sabrina Stowe, and she's going to talk about a stovetop fire stop initiative that the fire department has.
Good morning. Mentioned a little bit last month about a project that we were going to do this month focusing on kitchen fires. We've also highlighted this at the Dixie Plastic Fair last month and doing several presentations of a device that we're going to be looking at. We want to point out just from January last year up and through August of 2016, we've had a total of 449 residential fires. Of those residential fires, 173 of those were related to cooking, primarily unattended cooking, and which led to these fires. We've been talking about the stovetop fire stop canisters for the last few months, and it's just a device that looks like this. It comes in a set of 2. They're really easy to install. We're going to be going out for several weekends to install those in various areas. Just like to give you a sample of the video here. There is a little wick at the bottom. Once that flame touches that wick, it's going to ignite the material to disperse from that. What we did is we looked at kitchen fires over the last period of 2011 to 2015. It's a little hard to see on this, but we've actually indicated where we've had those cooking fires. In the next slide, just to give you an example of an area that we're going to be targeting on our first outing, which will be on October 22nd. We're going to be looking in areas that have a lot of cooking fires, and we're going to target those areas, and we're going to go out and install these devices in those homes. So we'll be going out on October 22nd. This first area is going to cover from Metropolitan Drive at Highway 52 moving east over to Cameron Avenue. Going to be covering 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st Streets. And some of the streets included in that will be Highland Avenue, Cleveland Avenue, Laura Wall, Hardesty, so on and so forth, down into Dunleith and Graham Avenue. We're also looking at several other locations. Again, these devices have been purchased by the city. We have about 500 devices that we're going to install in these homes. As we're looking at the other 2 areas, we're hoping to get 3 areas that we can cover. And we'll also have people to call in if they're in these areas, and we'll provide those devices installation, of course, free of charge. Anyone have any questions, they can contact me at 773-7965 for more information about those devices. Do you all have any questions for me at this time?
Do you have any of these in place yet?
Excuse me?
Any of these devices, are they in place yet?
Yes, we've been installing these over the last few years anyway. They are in some of HUD properties. I know, for instance, Piedmont Circle is one of the areas that already has these devices, Sunrise Towers, some of the places that have more multiple dwelling type facilities already have these, and we've been installing them as requested as well. This is just a bigger project because the city has bought into this and purchased these devices to particularly go into areas where there is a high volume of kitchen fires.
Have they been in use? Have they gone off and saved
Yes, we do keep a record when these devices go off, as we classify it as a save. And so when those deploy, we do keep a record of that information.
How many saves have you had?
I don't have an exact number of that. I'm not sure if Chief Owens has an exact number. And it changes periodically. I can get that for you.
So do you feel they've made a difference then?
Definitely makes a difference. It's a difference between just wiping up a powder from your stove or completely destroying your home. Definitely makes a difference. These devices are about $40 to $50, $40 to $60, depending on whether it's a cooktop that has a hood over it, or if there's a microwave over it. That's a different type of device, a little bit different, and it costs a little bit more, but generally between $40 and $60 for a set. The lifespan of these is about 5 to 6 years. It's one of those things where you set it and you forget it. You don't have to worry about it going off. It's only going to go off if there is an actual flame, not steam, not smoke. It's not going to activate as your smoke alarm would. It has to be a flame that touches it, as you saw in that video.
One last question.
Sure.
Would you like to see these as common as smoke detectors?
We would love to see these as common as smoke detectors. We would love to see a city ordinance that requires these to be in homes. But for now, we're doing, the most and the best that we can with these devices. Any other questions?
Have you continued to see the number of kitchen fires come down over the years as these devices have been implemented?
Well, we've seen some improvement. We're hoping that with the large amount that we're going to be putting in now, we're hoping to see those numbers go down a lot more and be able to track those numbers.
Can you hold up that device?
Sure. I'm going to open it up so that you can see it a little bit better. It has an industrial size type magnet on the top of it. And then there's the little indicator, the fuse at the bottom. And these just sit on either side of the stove in between the 2 sets of burners. So one canister will cover one side of the stove and this one will cover the other. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. Excuse me. This concludes the fire department's portion of the media briefing. Do you have any other questions regarding anything that the fire department presented today? All right, thank you.
Do you have an idea how long your crew will be down on the coast?
We're going to find out later today exactly how long they're going to be down there. They're committed for 3 to 4 days. We have received word back that we're going to have to be sending a replacement crew. So probably later today or tomorrow, we would expect to have that completed. We haven't received confirmation yet. They had a media briefing, EOC briefing from the state this morning, just kind of letting everybody know where you stand, because, you know, when the crews initially deployed from all over North Carolina and all over the United States down there, that's what they were asked to do, was to make provisions for being there for at least 4 days. And now that their time is up, the state is looking at replacing those folks. So again, as I said, 4 of the folks that we sent from here in Winston were water rescue technicians. So that's a very highly specialized field, and there's not that many folks out there. So I believe that the state is going to ask us again for more water rescue technicians, and we will cycle those people through, make sure that they come back and that they're okay, and that the folks that go down are prepared for what they might find, because they have to be self-sufficient while they're down there. When they went down Sunday from here, they got there at night, and as soon as they got there, they started getting assignments right away. So, you know, they're doing water rescues at night. So water rescue in and of itself is very dangerous, but then when you do that at night, without the assistance of daylight to help you see other things going on around you, you know, it's very difficult. So they were put in a dangerous mode, and they hit the ground running. So we're very proud of those folks and what they've done to help the folks of Eastern North Carolina. So we expect to continue to do that.
How many water rescue technicians do you have employed with the fire department?
I have to get that number for you. I don't know the total number that we have. You know, we provide water rescue services from 2 different locations here in the city. So there's 2 companies of folks that are trained, and then you have 3 rotating shifts. So we man those apparatus all the time in the event that we have some type of water rescue here in Winston-Salem, that we can deploy those folks out. So I don't have an exact number for you off the top of my head, but we do have quite a few people. So deploying those 4 people, you know, really didn't have an impact on services here. If we needed to have a subsequent water rescue here in Winston-Salem, we had plenty of people to be able to affect that. Well, thank you all. At this time, I'd like to bring up Mel Sadler. He is the Director of the Office of Emergency Management. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Owens. I am Mel Sadler. I am the Director of Emergency Management for the City of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. And we just want to talk briefly, and I do mean briefly, about Hurricane Matthew. We were impacted over the weekend, as I'm sure everyone is aware, and as kind of to allude to what Chief Owens said a minute ago, the sun is shining and the sky is clear. But our fellow North Carolinians are having a difficult struggle recovering. Well, recovery hadn't begun yet. They're still in the emergency response mode in a lot of locations in North Carolina. And we want to make sure that we're aware of that and what's going on. Hurricane Matthew has the largest impact against, well, I shouldn't say against, in North Carolina since Hurricane Floyd in 1999. This probably will exceed Hurricane Floyd in terms of dollars and in terms of damage. We have several communities that are almost totally devastated at this point. We want to make sure everybody is aware of that. As of this morning, we have had 19 fatalities in North Carolina from Hurricane Matthew. Chief Owens heard me this morning. I guess I was kind of passionate when I spoke about turn around, don't drown. That's not just a cute saying. That's life and death information. The majority of those 19 people died in motor vehicles. They either tried to drive through standing water. I think one person was walking in standing water, or they went around barricades. That's obviously not the thing to do. And I really want to stress that for people who, not necessarily for today, but in some future time here in Winston-Salem and Forsyth County, we were going to put up barricades and we're going to have similar problems. We want to stress, please don't do that. If you see standing water, do not walk through it, do not drive through it, because you may become a statistic. We have statewide mutual aid agreements, and I want to make sure everybody is aware of that. Every municipality in Forsyth County, including the county itself, are participants in the mutual aid agreement. That allows us to send resources to various places within North Carolina. It also allows those resources to be sent here in the event that we are the ones who are impacted. So we have a mutual situation that works out pretty well. We're really proud of the people in the Winston-Salem Fire Department who are down there right now. They were among the first. They went Saturday. And if you realize that was not probably the best time to be traveling, but here again, they stood up and went down, and we are really happy with them. In addition to those individuals who went from the Winston-Salem Fire Department, we also have deployed another swiftwater team from the Louisville Fire Department. I think it's 4 at this point, but the situation is kind of fluid because some of them have to go and come, just as, again, Chief Owens alluded to. So I believe we have 4 people there at this point from the Louisville Fire Department. We've got 3 paramedics from the Forsyth County Emergency Services Department. They're down there. They've been there since Sunday morning, I believe, and they will be changed at some point too. And of course, we've got a member of our staff in the Emergency Management Office who is down there in Edgecombe County working in the EOC, along with another person from the fire department. And we've got several volunteers from the Piedmont Emergency Animal Rescue Team who deployed yesterday to Lenoir County. They're going to be setting up companion shelters for individuals who are being evacuated. I want to make sure everybody understands people are still being evacuated at this point, and they will be continuing that. The water is still rising in several areas. It will be until Friday, when the last river is expected to crest. That does not mean that it will definitely crest, but the last river is expected to crest on Friday. At that time, we can probably begin to work in the recovery. Recovery from this hurricane is going to take an awful long time. We're going to be exchanging our people, I would almost bet, and we're going to be asked for additional people. You think about it, you're going to need building inspectors, you're going to need sanitarians, you're going to need a number of different people with different skills and different certifications. So this will be an extended operation. I would imagine it's going to probably go into the years as opposed to weeks or other shorter periods of time to which we're accustomed. A donations hotline is being established by the governor's office. I checked just before we started here, and I don't have the phone number yet. They've not established the telephone number, but for those people who may be interested in making donations, there will be a line established for private citizens. There is another line that has been established for businesses, and I don't have that number with me, but businesses who wish to make contributions toward the recovery are encouraged to do that. I would like to ask everybody who is interested in what's going on, and this is again going to be an ongoing situation for an extended period of time, to check your internet at www.readync.org. That will be the place where you can find the latest information almost directly from the scene in terms of updates, in terms of what's going on, situations such as we've got 2 major interstates that are out right now that are being detoured, and some of the other things that are going on right now. If you want to know what's going on, you want to keep up with the latest information, particularly if you're planning to travel into that area, we recommend that you check readync.org. Let me say that one more time, readync.org. Make sure everybody heard that. Okay, now, those were a few brief points we wanted to make. In addition to all the other things that are going on, we were just briefly impacted here locally Saturday and Sunday with some power situations, but more importantly, the Carolinas have been impacted severely in terms of people being without power. So we took this opportunity to invite a special guest to come and speak with you today. We're very pleased to have with us Mr. Jimmy Forsyth. He is the director of the West Region of Government and Community Relations with Duke Energy. He's got the latest information, and he is prepared to bring you up to date as far as what's going on, what has happened, and how their company is being impacted. And I might say one other thing I intended to mention before. If you think about it, I mentioned that the water is still rising. That impacts Duke Power also. They can't get to some of their equipment and some of their substations and other locations that they need for recovery until the water goes down. So it's going to be really an extended operation. But let me introduce Jimmy Forsyth, and he'll give you the details from the Duke Energy perspective.
Thank you, Mel. Real briefly, I'd like to take this opportunity to first just say thanks to all the first responders. We work hand in hand and very closely with emergency management, police, fire, and kind of managing these emergency situations as we've had with Hurricane Matthew. And I'll try to be brief, but just to give you a little bit of a perspective,
When we look at the size and the impact of storms historically for Duke Energy Carolinas, Duke Energy Progress, and the merged companies together, this ranks, Hurricane Matthew is going to rank about 5th as far as the large impact, with about 680,000 customers being the peak number that were off at any given time. The numbers are probably more than 1.3 million total customers at any given point lost power and have been restored. We've restored power to more than 1 million customers so far. I think right now we're down in the Carolinas to about 130 or 40,000 customers that are still without power. It's a pretty massive storm. As it came through on Sunday, we were even I think the wraparound winds, maybe the term meteorologists may give it, were affecting customers. We were having outages as far away as Asheville as the size of the storm went through. To give you a little perspective too, we've got substations that are still underwater. We're having to look at provisions to bring in a temporary substation to get some of those customers back on. So it's been a pretty significant event. Just to give you an idea of the ramping up of resources for this event, prior to the storm, normal operations, we have about 2,300 personnel devoted to just keeping the lights on day in and day out in the Carolinas. Before the storm hit, we had ramped that up to about 4,600. And today we probably have close to 9,000 resources that are responding and working to get the power back on throughout the Carolinas. We're thinking probably Sunday, but as Mel said, with the rising floodwaters, it could take longer. There may be some places that we can't get to as those floodwaters are just beginning to recede in some places. And I think Mel and I were talking before the briefing here that some of those rivers aren't going to peak in the far eastern parts of the state until much later this week. So it's a very difficult situation. One of the things we're having to run up against is crews being able to get to the areas. There's a lot of flooded roads to be able to get in and out of the area. And we're going to continue to work and devote all the resources we need. I saw a note last night where even some of our crews have finished up work in Florida, and they're heading up to the Carolinas to assist with the damage issues and trying to restore power. I think with that, I'll just see if there are any questions anybody has.
How unique are the challenges of cleaning up after a hurricane? It's not like a snowstorm where you can just cut the tree off the wire and you're back to normal. I mean, you're losing infrastructure.
Yeah, the uniqueness is just being able to get to those locations. I mean, there are a lot of places we can't get to. I don't have any specifics from this storm, but I know in other flooded situations we've had to work with emergency management to get boats to get crews to certain areas, maybe to get a pole reset and reestablished. I know early on Sunday, I think we had counted 800 poles, and we'd only done damage assessment for about half of the area. So as we try to get information, one of the things we're doing too with customers is as we update our outage restoration times, we're a lot of customers, I think we've had over 1 million customers have signed up to get updates, and so we'll send text messages as their estimated time of restoration are set after damage assessment, and we've kind of matched our resources to kind of determine when we think we can restore power to those areas.
I know you said you don't have specifics as far as locations go, but for these places you're talking about that you can't get to because of the flooding, are we seeing any of that locally here in the Triad in Winston-Salem or any around here, or is that more on the coast?
Yeah, that's all on the coast, and probably a couple of counties in seem to have experienced more damage and more flooding than actually coastal areas. I think the coastal areas are restoring normal a little bit easier than even some of those inland, one or two counties inland from the coast. Here in the Piedmont Triad, I think we peaked at about 2,500 customers being without power on Sunday. And we still are having a few outages occur throughout the day on Sunday just due to those wraparound winds. But we've got pretty much all of our resources, except for a few to kind of manage emergencies throughout the state, or have been redeployed to those hard-hit areas. Fortunately, the weather's good. Not expecting a whole lot of weather-related outages in the rest of the state, so just kind of dealing with those rising floodwaters.
How hard is that, just when crews are out there working and they're having to wait for the floodwaters to recede before they can even work, and then still, I'm sure it's a challenge, right?
Sure, yeah, and what we're doing, the places where we've got a substation that's underwater, we can't re-energize that substation, but crews are still doing the damage assessment for the parts of those circuits that do are dry enough, and we're going ahead and making those repairs where we can so that we'll be as ready as we can when the floodwaters recede. But I'm sure once the floodwaters recede, we'll get in, we'll find additional damage and more repairs that are going to have to be done. And, you know, all the time with all the wetness, it's difficult sometimes getting trucks stuck trying to get out in a field to reset a pole in a rural area. It's a pretty challenging situation, but we've got specialized equipment we'll bring in for these situations, and, you know, four-wheel drive, line trucks, and even bigger equipment that's, you know, off-road type equipment.
How do costs from storm cleanup reflect on people's energy bills? I feel like some people might be wondering that.
Yeah, Duke Energy has never, you know, come back in and asked for a rate increase due to a storm. It gets kind of just built into the normal operations, day-to-day operations. You know, as we have to change a pole, for example, or replace a transformer, you know, those go into the calculation for the rates. And so at some point in the future, you know, that'll get reflected into that equipment had to be changed and updated, and maybe the existing equipment retired before its normal depreciated value. So those kind of things eventually will you know, find their way into rates. But we've never had a rate increase in Duke Energy's history where we've gone in and asked for an increase due to a storm. It just kind of gets absorbed into the cost of doing business.
What would you tell directly to these customers down there that are waiting on their power to be restored? Because some folks may be without power for more than a week, potentially, by the time it's said and done. I'm sure tempers can
Sure.
flare with some people. What would you tell those customers directly?
Yeah, I just tell them we've got all the resources. We've got crews coming from as far away as Canada. And like I said, we're even bringing crews up from Florida that have done the damage, you know, repairs they had to down there coming. So we're continuing to add resources. You know, at some point, you know, you can have thousands of crews, but, you know, but you know, a crew of 2 or so or 4 can work on replacing a pole. So once these floodwaters recede, we'll get crews on all these situations and just kind of ask for their patience, and please let them know that we're doing all we can. We're working as hard and as fast as we can to get the power restored. You know, we want to get back to normal. You know, we've got a lot of employees down east who their personal property, their homes have been damaged. You know, their families are at home without power, but they're doing their jobs to get the power restored.
And I know you said that at the highest point there were about 2,500 around here without power, and mostly the problem's still at the coast now. Are there still people around here in the Triad? Is there a big block of people without power?
No, here in the Triad, we pretty much had everybody restored by Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening. Well, thank you. Appreciate your time.
All right, are there any questions for emergency management or any other questions for Duke Energy, excuse me? If not, I want to take this opportunity to say one last time, turn around, and what? Thank you. We'd like to introduce Chief Barry Roundtree, the Chief of the Winston-Salem Police Department, who will bring you information from his department.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning to everyone. I am Chief Roundtree of the Winston-Salem Police Department. Before we get started, I do like to take this opportunity to thank all the women and men of the Winston-Salem Police Department for what you do every day to serve the citizens of Winston-Salem. Also, as customary, we want to open our portion of the program by honoring the WSPD officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty while serving in the month of October. This month, and actually today, we honor Sergeant Mickey Gary Hutchins. End of watch Monday, October the 12th, 2009. Cause of death, injuries as a result of gunfire. The date of the incident was Wednesday, October the 7th, 2009. Incident details: Sergeant Hutchins was shot outside a local restaurant after he responded to a disturbance call. The restaurant's manager reported that her ex-husband, who had outstanding warrants for his arrest, was at the restaurant and would not leave. The suspect fled as officers arrived and then opened gunfire at close range when confronted. The suspect shot Sergeant Hutchins in the head. He also shot Officer Daniel Clark in the head and chest before being fatally wounded. Both officers were transported to Baptist Medical Center. Officer Clark survived his injuries and was released from the hospital days later. Despite all efforts from medical staff, Sergeant Hutchins died of his injuries. Sergeant Hutchins was a 27-year veteran of the Winston-Salem Police Department and he is survived by his wife and 2 daughters. Let us all pause for a moment as we honor Sergeant Hutchins and all officers who have lost their lives while serving in the month of October. Let us pause for a moment. Thank you. Our topics for this month, we will have information presented on Domestic Violence Month that will be presented by Lieutenant Eric Montgomery. Next, we'll follow Lieutenant Tyrone Phelps. He'll do a presentation on our appeal collection drop box. He will be followed by Sergeant Neil Barrier on a canine overview. And bringing up the rear, we'll have a special presentation from one of our community partners, Rob Simon from Windsor Jewelers. Lieutenant Montgomery.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning. October is recognized nationally as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. During this month and throughout the year, we recognize the victims and celebrate the survivors of domestic violence. The Winston-Salem Police Department this year partnered with Community Intervention and Educational Services, Eliza's Helping Hands, MindSight, Counseling and Consultation Services for our 2016 Domestic Violence Awareness Month initiatives. Our objective was to create as much awareness about domestic violence as possible. And I would like to share with you our 2016 domestic violence initiatives. On October 5th, we held a kickoff program and candlelight vigil at the Small Business Center at Forsyth Technical College at Innovation Quarter. Mayor Alan Jones attended and made a proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Numerous advocates, survivors, family members, and victims survivors and police personnel were in attendance. The police department's silent witness silhouettes were on display at our kickoff and will be at numerous events throughout the city during the month of October. If you see any of our silent witness silhouettes, please take a picture of it and post it to the WSPD Twitter or Instagram page. All marked police vehicles will display a purple ribbon magnet throughout the month of October. In Corpening Plaza, there are purple ribbons tied to the trees that border the park. Each ribbon represents one person who lost their life in Winston-Salem to domestic violence. There are also signs to inform everyone that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Additional purple ribbons and signs are displayed at the Public Safety Center to remind everyone that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Please look out for our Domestic Violence Awareness Month banner. This is actually a picture from last year when it was down on University Parkway near Northwest Boulevard. With special thanks to the Twin City Quarter, our banner will be displayed on a bridge on North Cherry Street near the Marriott Hotel next week, beginning Monday, October 17th. Area radio stations such as 97.1 FM, AM 1340, FM 103.5 helped us to get the word out and increase the awareness of domestic violence. So I'd like to give thanks to those folks, Buster Brown and Anita, Boss Lady Dean, Arnett. I would also like to thank the members of the media who covered the kickoff event, and you really helped to increase the awareness in a major way. On August the 2nd, if you go ahead to the next slide, August the 2nd, area restaurants supported Dying Domestic Violence Out of Town by donating a portion of their profits to Eliza's Helping Hands. On September 11th, we all took part in Run Domestic Violence Out of Town. The proceeds from the 5K run/walk went to support Eliza's Helping Hands. Our newly wrapped domestic violence awareness vehicle is parked out front of the Public Safety Center, and it has our new message on it to drive domestic violence. Drive out domestic violence. It will also be on display at the Winston-Salem Fair. It was on display at the fair. It will be inside of the Haynes Mall the last week of this month. It'll be in the homecoming parade this weekend, Forsyth Technical College's Fall Festival, and several of the area high schools. So if you see our domestic violence awareness vehicle, please take a picture of it and post it on our Twitter or Instagram page. Members from the Winston-Salem Police Department, Community Intervention and Educational Services, and Eliza's Helping Hands, and Mindsight Counseling and Consultation Services were at the fair this year to provide information and answer questions pertaining to domestic violence. The Winston-Salem Police Department will participate in the 14th Annual National Family Violence Apprehension Detail on October 19th. This DV sweep is a day-long event in which agencies across the United States will attempt to serve outstanding family violence warrants. You can go to the Caracas County Sheriff's Office website, which is pictured here, for more information on this effort. There are many businesses in the area, downtown area, that have painted their buildings purple with purple lighting in support of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So you can go to the police department's webpage at www.wspd.org, click on the domestic violence button, and you can get information if someone you know has questions about domestic violence or may be in need of resources. Thank you. And next I'll introduce Lieutenant Tyrone Phelps.
Good morning. I'm Lieutenant Phelps, assigned to the Chief's Office. It's my pleasure to introduce our new Pill Collection Dropbox program. If we can get it up. The intent of the program is to provide citizens a convenient and safe way to dispose of unneeded or unwanted pills from their homes. Proper and safe disposal of pills serves to reduce the possibility of accidental or criminal misuse of these drugs. It provides a safe alternative to disposal of medications in landfills and or sewer systems. Citizens will check in with the officer at the front desk to start the process for the pill collection. The officer at the front desk will guide the citizen through the collection process and answer any questions. Any prohibited items will be denied collection. Prohibited items will include liquids, gels, sharps, syringes, aerosol products, illegal controlled substances. The Dropbox will be available to the public during normal business hours for the Public Safety Center. Signage with instructions in both English and Spanish will be made available and visible. Pills from businesses, healthcare facilities, long-term care facilities, pharmaceutical representatives, pharmacies, doctor offices, and veterinary clinics will not be accepted. Citizens will remove their pills from the container and place them inside a sealable plastic bag that will be provided. The citizen will then place the plastic bag inside the Dropbox to complete the collection. The first day of operation will be on Monday, October the 17th, 2016. Citizens with questions about other drugs needing disposal can visit the website fda.gov, search drug disposal for helpful tips. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Sergeant Barrier.
Good morning. My name is Sergeant Barrier, Winston-Salem Police Department. This right here is Corporal Perkins, Mike Perkins, and his K-9 Dexter. Excuse me. Well, I'd like to take a little bit of time now just to discuss what our program is, the K-9 unit, some little facts and figures on it, exactly what we do. K-9 unit is actually assigned to our Special Operations Division. We're consisting of 10 K-9 teams presently. That is our patrol narcotic teams. Basically what they do is several patrol aspects.
that including tracking, building searches, article searches where they actually go out in wooded areas, dense areas where they look for evidence discarded during a crime, handler protection, and narcotics detection. We currently have 3 K9 teams now that's assigned, narcotics only teams assigned to our Special Investigations Division, or a VICE unit, and 1 that's assigned to our SRO program that basically assists with school sniffs throughout Winston-Salem. Give you an idea on how these guys get started. What we do is actually go to a vendor, purchase a K9. Once that K9 is purchased, they are actually trained in-house by myself and 2 other trainers on the unit. Start out with basically the Dr. Green. By that mean they may have a little bit of obedience in them. Other than that, we start from scratch. The handler will go through 400 hours of what we call basic K9 training. We instill everything in the dog at that point, from obedience to dope searches to handler protections to tracking and so forth. What we're doing basically is taking what these dogs have done naturally for hundreds and hundreds of years and just tweak it a little bit to fit our needs. Instead of tracking prey, they're taught to track for suspects or missing persons. They're taught to look for drugs. Several other aspects involved with it. Once the handler completes that 400 hours of training, we do what we call maintenance training each month. Each handler is required to conduct 16 hours of training as a group. Basically what we come in, we do group training 16 hours a month, make sure everybody's up to par, troubleshoot any issues we may be having. Each handler on the unit also conducts training on their off time and while they're on duty separate to that. I expect usually they're probably doubling that amount of training time each month from what they're doing. Once they get through basic training, we'll do a certification on the canines. They are actually certified through our North American Police Working Dog Association. They're an independent certification body. An independent master trainer actually comes into Winston-Salem, certifies each dog on every aspect they do. Certification is good for 1 year, and basically every handler is required to complete that certification. We also conduct several schools throughout the year. We'll send guys to in-service training schools all over the state of North Carolina to learn new techniques that they can bring back to assist us in our weekly training. Give you an idea on some of the things we've done in the past 12-month period. The unit has conducted 464 tracks. Tracks being anything from suspects, say, a larceny where they've stolen an item, run away, or to a missing person. Out of those 464 tracks, we have located 63 individuals, which is higher than national average as far as tracking. And I'm really proud of these guys because we're in a very urban environment here, and they work hard to make sure they're successful in that, and their work shows. 62 additional tracks, they've located evidence of a crime along that track. Discarded items of evidence, suspect clothing, weapons, you name it, they found it. They've conducted 33 article searches throughout the year. What an article search, again, is like someone robs a store, runs away, throws items in the wood, see a police officer coming. They actually go out and find evidence of that crime, and they've totaled just under $4,000 worth of evidence seized off article searches this year. VCSA, or correction, narcotic seizures this year, combined with our unit and Special Investigations Division, were right over $3.5 million worth of seizures in drugs this year. So they're out there working really hard each and every day. Proud of these guys. If you have any questions from me or Officer Perkins.
How many K9 officers do you have?
Total of 14 right now. Again, 10 of them is in our patrol narcotics. Dogs is out here, what you see in the patrol cars in the streets every day. We have 3 vice narcotics and 1 in the school systems. Thank you.
We're pleased and grateful today to have one of our community partners here to make a special presentation to several officers who were awarded the Officer of the Year internally here at the Police Department. So at this time, I'll ask Mr. Rob Salmon to come forward from Windsor Jewel for the presentation.
Good morning. Thank you, Chief Roundtree. Appreciate it. I'm Rob Simon with Windsor Jewelers. The significance of this award is to symbolize all of the tremendous work our police officers do, and to demonstrate that their efforts and commitments are recognized and appreciated by our community. My colleagues at Windsor Jewelers and the good people at Hamilton Watch Company are proud to recognize these local heroes. Each of these honorees represents the entire police department, and many times, regardless of their own safety, they do what they are trained to do, and they do it so well. We are so grateful you are here. We additionally recognize your loved ones who support and worry about you while you're on duty. Thank you all for making Winston-Salem a safer place to live. So officers, please wear these watches as symbols of recognition for your commitment and service to our community. And we'll have you come up one at a time. I believe we're going to play videos for each officer.
In November 2013, Officer Christopher Dabb responded to a 911 medical call. A bystander directed Officer Dabb inside a house where he found a woman lying on her back. She had no pulse and the civilian was conducting chest compressions. Officer Dabb took over the administration of CPR until fire department and EMS personnel arrived and relieved him. EMS personnel established a pulse and transported the woman to the hospital where she resumed breathing on her own. For his professionalism and decisive action, Officer Dabb was named the Winston-Salem Police Officer of the Year for 2013. In May 2014, Officer Michael P. Moore responded to a 911 call reporting a woman trapped inside a burning house. Officer Moore was the first responder to arrive. The house was engulfed in flames and he heard a woman screaming inside. He climbed the fence, entered the house, and found the woman standing inside, hysterical and paralyzed by fear. Officer Moore dragged the woman from the house and kicked down a fence in order to get her to safety as the fire department arrived. In recognition of his heroic actions, Officer Moore was awarded the Medal of Valor and named the Winston-Salem Police Officer of the Year for 2014.
One more. 1, 2.
In January 2015, Corporal David G. Smith and Officer David W. Smith responded to a single vehicle accident. They found a vehicle on its side in Peters Creek. The driver's side of the vehicle was submerged. The officers immediately entered the frigid water and saw the driver still inside with his head underwater. The officers broke through the sunroof glass and managed to pull the driver from the vehicle. He had no pulse, so they administered chest compressions until EMS arrived. In recognition of their quick action, Corporal Smith and Officer Smith were each awarded the Medal of Merit and were named the Winston-Salem Police Officers of the Year for 2015.
time. 1, 2. Good.
Thank you, Barry, for letting us be part of this.
Thank you for presenting these tokens and watches to the officers, and thank you for being a great community partner to the Winston-Salem Police Department. Those are the topics that we have today. Are there any questions from any of the topics that the police department presented today?
We're gonna run something tonight about you guys honoring Sergeant Hutchins. Can you just kind of talk a little bit about who he was and why it's still important for so many years later to keep his memory alive here at the department?
Well, it's always important that we remember all of our employees and especially the police officers who have served and lost their lives while serving this community. Sergeant Hutchins was a friend of mine. I knew him for several years. He was a family man, and he was dedicated to the citizens of Winston-Salem, and that showed by what he sacrificed on October the 12th, 2009. Any other questions?
Talk a little about just what he meant to you personally and what he meant to this.
Let's do that after we're done here,
Oh, okay.
after we close out. Any other questions on the topics that we presented today?
Anything you want to say about how Hurricane Matthew impacted us here and just how you and your team responded to it?
Basically what we dealt with was just I hate to use the term standard calls for service, but we did have an increase in calls for service and just dealing with the impact from the rain. Those were really the things that we dealt with here as a police agency. Okay, if no other questions, we are in the news briefing. Thank you for being here.